Continuing reading Sri Valmiki's Ramayana, Balakanda, Chapter 5, The Ashwamedha Yagya. King Dasaratha spoke to Vashishta and Vamadev about the words of Sanat Kumar, which had been repeated to him by Sumantra. The Gurus were only too happy to have Rishya Shringa among them during the performance of the Yagya. The king, therefore, accompanied by a large army and by his chief ministers and preceptors, began the journey to Anga, and after traveling through forests and several countries, arrived at the city where Romapada lived. Hearing about the coming of the great emperor of Koshala, Romapada hurried out of his city and went to the city gates to welcome Dasarat with great enthusiasm. The two kings greeted each other with great affection, and together they went to the presence of Rishya Shringa. The Rishi was glowing like a flame. The king of the Koshalas fell at his feet and honored him. Romapada told him about the great friendship which had existed between himself and King Dasaratha. They spent 7 days together happily, and on the 8th day Dasaratha told his friend, "I have a boon to ask of you, my friend. I want you to allow your daughter and her husband, the great Rishi, to come to my kingdom for a while. This is to help me achieve something for which I have been praying for the last so many years." He then told Romapada about the yagya which he was planning to perform. Dasaratha now approached Risha Shringa and requested him to preside over the functions. "So be it," said the Rishi, and went with Dasaratha to Ayodhya. The friends parted after affectionate farewells. Dasaratha sent a host of messengers in advance, asking them to prepare the city for the arrival of the illustrious guest. When the royal entourage arrived in the city, the streets had been decorated with banners and flags and flower garlands, and the entire city had a festive look. The king took the Rishi and his wife to his Antapura and made them stay in the apartment set apart for them. When he had brought them to his city, the king felt that he had already achieved the goal for which he was striving. The season, Vasanta, had now made its appearance. The rivers were filled with pure and sweet waters, and the trees were covered with fresh green leaves. Dasaratha approached the honored guest Rishya Shringa and requested him to undertake the performance of the yagya. The Rishi said, "Now that the season Vasanta is here, I feel the time is perfect for the beginning of the yagya. You should instruct the ministers and your servants to collect the materials for the yagya, and you can now send the sacrificial horse for its sojourn round the entire Bharatavarsha." The king listened to him with respectful attention, and he instructed Sumantra to take care of all the details. He sent him first to fetch his guru Vashishta, accompanied by Vamadev, Suyagya, and the others. They came, the masters of all the Vedas and all the sacred lore. Honoring them and placing them on their seats, the king spoke in his characteristic humble manner. "You know only too well how much I have been pained at the thought that I have no son to continue the mighty line of the Ikshwakus. I have told you about the prophecy that my sorrow will be at an end if I perform the yagya with the great Risha Shringa to preside over it. I now stand humbly in front of all of you, asking you to grant me permission to commence the yagya and to bless me." Vashishta and the others were pleased with the humility of the king, and knowing what a righteous man he was, they were happy that he was about to perform the yagya, which would be the crowning glory of his life. Along with Risha Shringa, they began to make all the preparations for the yagya, and they told the king, "We can assure you that the yagya will be performed without any hindrance, and your wishes will certainly be granted." On the northern bank of the Sarayu, the Yagyashala was soon constructed, and the materials necessary for such an elaborate yagya were assembled methodically and very quickly. The seasons passed quickly, and once again Vasanta heralded its approach by the fresh green buds on the branches of the barren trees. The very air seemed to breathe more freely, and there was happiness in the city and in the heart of the king and his queens, since the yajna was due to begin. Dasarata took the dust of the feet of Vashishta and the others and spoke to his guru. My lord, you have been my preceptor. You have been like a father to me, since you were the one to initiate me into the great Gayatri. It is up to you to make this yajna successful and make me happy. Attended by all the kings of Bharatavash, the yajna was performed without a single fault, and the Ashwamedha yajna was drawing to a close. The king then requested Rishyashringa to help him perform the yajna by name Putra Kama, which would grant him the son he desired. The rishi pondered for a moment and then said, There is a certain rite which is described in detail in the Atharva Veda. I happen to know all about it, and I will perform it for you. The Putra Kama Yajna was begun at an auspicious moment, and the heavenly host assembled in the skies to receive their share of the Havis. End of chapter 5. The Ashwamedha Yajna. Hare Krishna.